Welcome back, everyone. In today's video, we are building our annual HO scale limited edition kit. Now, I'm only making 180 of these kits, and when it sells out, it's gone. I'm not producing any more of them. I am extremely proud of this model. I think it's the best model I've produced yet. I really think you're going to love it. Let me take the camera off and give you a closer look at it before we actually start into how to build it. And don't forget, if you are a paid Patreon member, you receive a discount on this kit. So here's the finished build. As you can see, lots of detail. This was so fun for me. All right, well, as you can see, this is a highly detailed kit. This can go up against the tracks and be serviced by rail, and then the front of it can be serviced by trucks. There's some possibilities with this. All right, this is a long build, so let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start with the wood walls that are in the kit. And these are all the walls that are provided. And all of these are clapboard except for this. You can see it's scribed. We're going to set that one to the side. And we're going to focus on these. So the first thing we're going to want to do is cut out the windows and doors and cut out these individual walls, and then cut the windows and doors out of these. And I'm using a brand new blade for this, and I'll put a link in the description how to get these blades. Okay, I've got all my walls cut. Now I'm going to take my straight file and just quickly go over to make sure there's no little nubs. Now we need to take a smaller file and make sure that our windows and doors are all nice and clean. It goes really quick. I just sprayed all the walls with this khaki color. It doesn't say a color on here, but it's just this tan color. I did not go heavy at all. I just did a light coat over it. And it's important to make sure that all your pieces are going the same direction. The clapboard is going the same direction. So don't put this piece long ways underneath it. They won't get sprayed evenly. So make sure that your clapboard is running this direction, and then lightly spray it all. Okay, we're going to let this dry, and we're going to come back and we're going to add nail holes and then lift a bunch of the boards and kind of beat this up. Then we'll actually put bracing on the back of all the walls, and then when that's dry, we'll stain the walls. Next, we're going to take a wire brush, same direction as the clapboard, okay? This just adds a little extra grain or texture to the wood. And you might not be able to see it with your eye, but when we stain the walls, all these little scratches, little lines, the stain will go in them and sort of accentuate it. Next, we're going to add nail holes. So I'm going to space these about every ½ inch. So first, with a pencil, we'll mark where it's going to go. Now, every time I put a mark, I'm slightly moving the wall so that it comes out evenly at the end, if that makes sense. When I put the ruler on there, it's actually 7 1/4. So you don't want to have just a thin strip on there. So like I said, I just moved it a little bit each time, and my last mark came out right at 7. So now we'll take our Pounce wheel, and we want to line this up on our mat so that everything is straight. And we're using a Pounce wheel, and I'll put a description or a link in the description below the video. Actually, so I don't have to keep saying that, in the video, below the video, there will be multiple links for everything that I'm using. Take your time when you're doing this. Make sure it's straight, and make sure you have good pressure holding your ruler down, because if you don't and it slips, it's going to go crooked, and there's no way to fix it. So again, line it up, make sure it's exactly where you want it. Put good pressure down on the ruler. And if you're wondering why I have my ruler upside down, I prefer it that way because then it's right up against the wood. Where if I do it like this, because of that cork, it's raised a little bit, and it can get kind of tricky. I do have one ruler somewhere where I actually took the time and peeled all the cork off of it. Alright, I'll go ahead and do all of the walls, and then we'll come back and start lifting some of the boards. Okay, it took a while, but all of the nail holes are done. Okay, now this part's going to take a little while too, but we're going to lift up some of the boards and cut some and just sort of distress the walls. So really simple. I've shown this many times. Just lay your blade almost flat, press it underneath the board, and lift. I like to sometimes make a cut right on the nail hole line. Hopefully you can see that. And I did. Oh yeah, I did one over here. Okay, I'll go ahead and work on all of these, and then what we need to do is flip these over and put bracing on the back so that we can stain the walls. Now when you're lifting the boards, I recommend looking at the box and seeing where signs go, or for instance, there's a loading dock that goes right in the front and it sits level with this big door and this little door. So pointless to do any work below that line. And then same here. There's a structure that gets glued in front of this. So we probably didn't even need to do nail holes there, but you definitely don't need to lift any of the boards in this area because that all gets covered. So just pay attention to the art that's provided on the box or the packaging that the kit comes in. Okay, all the boards are lifted. Now these will calm down. It won't be as extreme. The stain sort of makes everything lay down. But the next step is to put bracing on the back of all the walls. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll go over each wall with you and show you how I braced it. I just completely filled my glue bottle, and I buy a gallon at a time of this. And then I just simply keep filling my bottle. Okay, very easy. This tall piece, bracing on both sides all the way to the edge. Same with this one, all the way to the edge. The little one, all the way to the edge. And then these two all the way to the edge and one in the middle. Then there is this one all the way to the edge, and I should put one in the middle. Okay, so this piece, you want to come in the thickness of the bracing on both sides. And then this piece here, make sure at the top that you come in the thickness of the bracing. Okay, then your two big walls, come in the thickness of the bracing on this side and this side. And again, up here at the top, come in the thickness of the bracing. And then you can put these wherever you want, but I'll show you. I went the full length here, the full length here, and a shorter piece here. I always try to put them next to the window, or especially in between two windows. I'll show you on this one. Just put a little piece, because a lot of times that's where it'll warp. Okay, so on this one, come in the thickness of the bracing, and same on this side. And then I went the full length here, a little shorter one there, and a short one there. Okay, now we'll go over these later when we get to, these have to be stained differently, and we'll definitely put bracing on these too. Now before we stain, you can scrape some of the paint off. I don't know if you can see right there where I scraped it. So just take the edge of your blade and scrape individual boards. And as you can see, you can go pretty fast. Then take your brush. Okay, I'm going to scrape some of these and then we'll come back and stain the walls. Okay, to stain our walls, we're using Ocean Depths. And the stain is from besttrains.com, right there. Okay, I just went along the bottom edge of the pieces with shadow gray, just to darken it up a little bit. Okay, I put some weights on the back side of the two big walls. We'll let that completely dry. Let's work on getting all of our plastic windows cut out. Okay, we have to cut all of our windows out of the sprues, even the little ones. And then we're going to paint all these along with our corner trim. So I've painted all of the windows and some corner trim with a flat red primer. It's like a reddish brown. Now, before we take our pieces off of this, we're going to take a sponge and sponge on a little bit of this paint. It's called iced coffee. Okay, I sponged on the iced coffee, and we're going to stain these. But first, if you want, lightly go over them and scrape in like some wood grain. Now we're going to use the Ocean Depths again. Don't scrub over it because it will actually take the paint off. And then we'll just quick go over our corner trim. Okay, I've got some of the windows glued in. The plastic is all pre-cut, so all you have to do is cut it out and glue it in. And then I just simply painted the back with some paint, and I used deep ochre. So all the windows are glued into our wood walls. These are obviously large doors and a regular door. This is a vent. This is the back wall, and a vent goes in there. Okay, let's take a break, and these windows are all for the stucco building that goes right next to it. Now, let's cut out all of our big doors and all of these doors, and let's get all that stuff painted. Now, if you wanted to, you could cut this. Be very careful not to cut the stair stringers. So these are all of the doors. There's a line on there, and you can just simply fold it. Okay, so we'll set this stuff aside. So all we're focusing on right now are the doors and all of the door frames, and we also have some vents. The first thing I'm going to do is cut out the solid doors. We're going to put a gray primer on these. So there's two parts to every door. You have the background, and then you have the part that gets glued on top of it. All of the backgrounds I'm spraying with a gray primer. Now you can do yours however you want to. I'm going to do the gray primer like I said, and then the top part that goes over these will be the reddish brown primer. I think we'll do these the iced coffee, but we'll spray them first with a gray primer and then brush on the iced coffee. It's so much easier when you're building a kit and you have a picture to look at, if you wanted to make it look like what it does on the box. I'm just making this up as I go. So okay, let's get a gray primer on this, and then we might as well go ahead and get the reddish brown primer on all of the frames and all of these doors. So I have a gray primer sprayed on these, and it's dry. Now I'm using iced coffee and kind of dry brushing. Okay, real light. I went over it. I dry brushed it with a color called Fawn. Then very little towards the top, just dragging it down very lightly. I dry brushed it with light sand. Now I'm going to take these off, and we're going to do a light misting of reddish brown over these, because we're going to rust those up a little bit. Okay, I did a light misting of the reddish brown. Now let me find a sponge. I'm using slate gray. It's very subtle, very subtle. Now we'll take these off. And now we'll spray these with the reddish brown primer. Okay, now let's take these off. This is a long process, it really is. And you know, I've mentioned it many times on this channel. It's all about layers. All about layers. And everything needs at least 3 colors on it. So we'll go in after these are glued together and go in with some dark pastels and some light pastels. Now we'll do all the door frames. We're just going to spray these with the reddish brown primer. Okay, let's get all of our door frames glued on. Now, the large ones, there's 2 different sizes. So there's 2 small ones. They go on here. Now you'll notice you can't mix them up because the other door frames are taller. So you'll see right away that it's too tall. And the reason is the taller ones have windows above the doors. These two do not. So let's get these glued on first. And I think what we'll do, it's a little less messy. I don't know if that's on camera, but I put some glue there. Then we'll get a small brush. Now we'll have to come back in and paint the inside of that opening so it matches the trim. I'll just show you quick on this one, and then I'll do all the rest of them off camera. I'm sure the paint's still wet, but you can see now it matches. You can't see the edge of the raw wood. And if you put it on kind of thick, you can cover up any little gap. Okay, I'll go ahead and get all of the door frames glued on and get the insides painted. Okay, we've got all of our doors and windows glued in place. Now let's go ahead and start getting some of our walls glued together. Now we want to make sure that it's a nice smooth edge for our corner trim. So let's just go over it with the file. Okay, we'll start with the front wall and this one. And it goes just like that. We'll line it up on our grid to make sure the walls are all square. Okay, we'll let that sit there for a little bit. Let that glue set up. Okay, it's all, the main walls are put together. And I can't stress enough that all your walls are perfectly square. Use 1, 2, 3 blocks. I have 2 of them. Use the lines on your mat, but make sure everything is perfectly square. It's going to be very important because there are loading docks and there is another structure that gets added to the end over here, and if it's not all square, it's not going to line up good. Okay, let's get all of our corner trim glued on. Okay, I've got this corner done and this corner, and then the 2 corners up top. Now we're going to do this side, and the corner trim goes the full length of the wall. So it's not just up here. Again, it goes the full length of the wall. Okay, our corner trim is on. Now, let's set this aside, and we're going to work on the loading dock that goes right in front. Okay, the loading dock that goes in the front is right here. And we have these side pieces that go underneath it. And then we have these little pieces. You'll have one on each end, and then put a few in the middle for support. All this is concrete that I'm showing you. Let's see, there is a little loading dock, and you'll see it has tabs. You'll see there's little notches that fits right there in those notches. And then this one goes on the end of the structure that comes out right here. So it'll sit approximately right there. Okay, so let's get this glued together. So you'll notice there's two little holes, and then actually there's another little notch. So there's three little rectangles on there. It's important, those three rectangles will go right there. So this is your top, and then we'll just put an X on the bottom, okay? So again, that's the top. This is the front side, and this is the back side. And there'll be a diagram in the instructions for you. So okay, we're gluing that right to the edge, and it goes to the edge on this side and this side. Now, you have 4 of these. We'll put one at each end. So it'll sit right there, even with the end of the building. Okay, but first we need to paint these to look like concrete. So first we'll get a gray primer sprayed on them. As you can see, the gray primer is sprayed on these, and now we're using chalk paint called Castle, slate gray, and desert sand. Now, you may have noticed I didn't mix them evenly. I just put them in there and just kind of dabbed it, and you'll see it's not evenly mixed. I don't know if the camera's picking up on that, but you can see the individual colors. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be, you don't want your concrete to be a solid color. I think too many people, I get this question all the time. What color do you use for concrete? And people just want to use one color, paint their concrete, and be done. Here I've got 3 colors. When this dries, we'll do some dry brushing with the desert sand. We'll go in with pastels. You want it to have value. You don't want to just be flat. I am really taking my time with this build, and like I just mentioned, I'm not doing just solid colors. Everything has at least 3 or 4 different colors or different shades on every item, because I want to keep pushing myself to improve in my modeling skills. Notice too that I am brushing it in all different directions, not just back and forth straight across. Okay, we'll let this dry and then we'll go over it again. This time pretty light, and we'll add some water to our mix. Okay, these are dry, and I just added quite a bit of water to the mix and a little bit more of the desert sand. I went over the top of this. Now I'm going to do this. And notice I'm not going over those cracks. Okay, I'm using the desert sand. Mix some of this and a lot of water. It looks extreme now, but it all soaks in and blends together. Okay, we'll let this dry good. Okay, I'm going to take the camera off and give you a closer look at this. Now that's 4 colors. There's the gray primer, the desert sand, slate gray, and castle gray. Now we can take our pastels and add some dirt. Okay, I glued it on. I then mixed neutral gray and zinc, and very lightly with a sponge, just here and there. It just adds little specks to it. Even on here. Just to make it look a little bit more like concrete. Okay, now we'll get this glued on the back. Okay, let's put this together. Then you've got this little one that goes up here, and this one right here. Now with this one, make sure that your clapboard is going the correct direction. Don't glue it on upside down. Making sure that it lines up so it's all square. Okay, now we'll put this little piece on there. Make sure it's level with the other side. Okay, now we'll just get the corner trim glued on there, and then that gets put flush with the edge of the concrete here and right up against the building. So don't glue that on yet, because we have a sign to put on here. So hold off on that. I did put in 2 supports and then 2 supports up here. And there's enough wood provided in the kit that you can put those in. Okay, I put the signs on. We have one there. Make sure it goes all the way to the edge. Then we have one here. Now, after they were glued on, well, first I cut the signs out and then I went over the edge of the paper with, this is cool gray number 4, but any dark gray, another dark gray, this is a cool gray 6. Just go over the edge of the paper so it's not white. Then I glued it on, and then I did a really light wash using Fawn. And honestly, it's mostly water. But you have to do it when it's completely dry. And then just brush over it in one direction, one thin coat. And it tones down that white. It's not so stark. Okay, now let's get this glued in place. So it's important when you glue this front section on that it's level with the side here. Now notice it's not level there, and that's the way it should be. Okay, let's set this to the side and we'll work on the stucco structure that goes right next to it. Okay, you have 3 walls, the roof, and trim that goes around the top. 3 pieces. Okay, let's start by taking this wall and this wall. Now it's easy, put them over the top of each other and make sure that your window lines up, that it's the correct height so that it's not upside down. Same with this one. Easy to glue it this way, but that is wrong. Because you can check to see if the windows line up. Okay, now this one gets glued to the back side of this one. Take your time, make sure that edge is nice and straight and lined up with the other piece. Okay, we'll give that a second to dry, and then we'll glue this one on. Look at it from the end and make sure that it's straight. You might have to bend it a little bit. And then this piece gets glued right to the top. Make sure that this is flush in the back here. It's okay if it doesn't quite line up on these 3 sides, but make sure that it's flush because it goes right like that. Okay, now let's get our trim. Okay, so 2 of the pieces are the same exact length. And then this one is slightly longer. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch longer. That long one goes on the front right here. I'm gluing mine right to the edge of the roof. I'll show you up close. Now we'll do the same with these. Okay, it is done. And you'll see it sticks up. Okay, now we're going to spray this with the reddish brown primer. Okay, it's sprayed, and you'll notice you can see where the glue is, but it did seal it so there's not a crack. Now that's okay because we're going to sponge a color over this entire thing, so you won't see that. Notice I didn't go that heavy on the top because we're going to mask this and then spray this with the gray primer. Okay, the gray is painted. Now with the sponge, we're going to use burnt sienna and sponge over the entire thing, and it's really just to give it some texture. And then we'll go back over it with gray to make it look like the paint is chipping off and the gray stucco is showing through. And here our little concrete pad that we made, that will go like this. Now notice that it hangs off the back side just a little bit, and then it doesn't line up. So that's exactly how it goes. Okay, I just sponged on some paint just to give it some texture. It's mostly burnt sienna and just a little bit of bittersweet chocolate. Okay, we'll let this dry, and then we'll use neutral gray and a little bit of slate gray and do some sponging mostly on the lower part of it to make it look like the paint is chipping off the stucco. You know, I've decided to use chalk paint. It's Castle. And we're just going to do some dry brushing. Okay, I just did some dry brushing with light gray. And really just towards the bottom. Sorry, I should have filmed this, but I forgot. I went over this with clear water. Not heavy, just did a thin layer of water. Then I took, it's called wrought iron, and made a very thin wash, and just went around the three edges, a little bit in the center. Then I took black, made another very thin wash, and went very lightly around the edges and just a few dots here and there, and just let it all bleed out. I then took the hair dryer and just started drying it. It's still a little damp, especially in the corners. And then we'll go in with some pastel chalks too after we get details glued on it. I was going to get my acetate glued in all my windows and start to glue those in, but I don't like how it's the same color brown, so I'm going to take my windows and my door and spray them with the khaki color. Okay, so I'm going to spray the windows, a door, and a door frame. Okay, I sprayed the windows with the khaki color, and then with my saw blade I just lightly dragged over them to give it a little bit of wood grain. Okay, I've painted all of the roof cards. Now I'm actually going to put my tar paper, my black construction paper, on the top of these before I glue them onto the structure. Then I have all of my trim painted, and once the roof's glued on, we'll put trim all around it underneath the overhang of the roofs. Okay, I cut the black construction paper, and I'm cutting it into strips. Now the first thing I did was lightly sprayed it with gray primer. I don't know if you can tell the difference. There is the black construction paper, and then this side is slightly gray. And you get some little spots too from the spray can. You probably can't see it on camera, but it just ages it. Now I cut my strips, and what I'm doing is taking each piece and adding nail holes. So I come over about a 1/16 of an inch from the edge, and then with my Pounce wheel I add the nail holes. It takes a while, but it's a nice detail, I think. Okay, now after I get all my nail holes on there, I'll start to glue the strips on. So for instance, this one here, remember the bottom, because of the overhang, I want this the brown color and the edge. So I'll glue my strips on here and then glue it on. Okay, after I glue the strips on, I take some sandpaper. This is 150 grit, and in one direction, go back and forth, rough it up, rough up your bottom edge good. Then I took slate gray and dry brushed it. Okay, all the roof cards are glued on, and then I went and painted the trim and got that all glued on. It takes a little while. You have to make sure that you get the trim on all the overhang all the way around it. Okay, now we have a little pop-out structure that goes right here, and then we have a roof access shed that goes on the top. All those parts are right here. And what I did was I sprayed this. I did a very light misting of gray primer. I did not spray it solid. I just did a light misting, and then right away before it was even dry, I did another light misting of the khaki color. I did the same on some corner trim. Then after that was dried, I took a wire brush and I went over it. Then I stained it with dark rust. Okay, I'm building the little structure that goes on the side here. I just wanted to point out that I glued the corner trim on, and then I cut it at the same angle as the wall. And then the same with this one. Now you want to make sure that you do the correct side. Then I took this, which goes in between those, and I took my file and filed the bottom of it. So it's at an angle. Then we can just simply glue these together. Okay, basically the main building is pretty much done. We added our little pop out there. Oh, I've got to put a vent on there. We've got our little roof access. We have to put a vent right there. We have a door to put in right there. A lot of little things. I think next what we're going to start is there is a catwalk on both sides, and then stairs that go down here, and then stairs that go down on the side. Here are some of the parts for those stairs and catwalks. Okay, we also have all of these parts. For those catwalks, we do need all of these. And then we'll need these stair parts. Okay, let's get those cut out. And we have more of those right here on the end. Okay, let's see how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You'll notice there are holes in the front, right here and right here. These get put in those holes just like that. Now I'll try to balance it so you can see, but all those have to get painted first and then glued in place. So let's go ahead and get all of our parts cut out for the stairs. Nothing else on this sheet is for the stairs. We'll put that to the side. This, just these 3 sections. Okay, and that's all for the stairs. Okay, so we have all these pieces, and then all of these. These are all the steps, railings, the catwalks, and another stair tread, and here. So let's get all this cut out too, and then we'll paint all this. Hopefully you can see those, but you have 3 long rectangles. Okay, I won't bore you, but we have to get all this stuff cut out, and don't forget you have this little square with engraved lines on it. That's part of the catwalk. Okay, here's all the parts that we're going to be painting. Okay, everything's sprayed. Now I have to flip all these pieces over and paint the other side. Okay, now we'll paint this side. Okay, we've got all the parts spray painted the reddish brown primer. You know, I'm looking at this and I don't like how the brown, even with gunmetal gray on it, you can't tell that it's metal. So, new plan. New plan. All this has to be repainted. Oh boy. Okay. Well, we just got to do it. Okay, I just sprayed everything with vintage teal. Now, I'm actually, before I flip these over and paint the other side, I'm going to put a wash. And I think I'm going to do a light wash of Hauser medium green. I don't know what this looks like on camera. It may look kind of yellowish, but it's turning into a bluish green, almost like a Statue of Liberty color. Okay. Whew, now we have to take all this off and flip it over. Okay, let's try this again. I've already got the braces glued in the front. And on the side. So 2 on the side, 4 in the front. Now, very gently, we're going to take the L-shaped one with the engraved lines facing up. Okay, now let's take care of the side. Now again, that should be glued right on the top of that engraved line. Okay, we're going to glue the outside one on first. So on that brace that comes out, there's a center post, and you glue the top of it, the top of the stringer, to that. And then we have to glue all the little individual steps. Okay, there's a plate that goes on the front here and a plate that goes on the side. So on the end of those brackets that stick out, we're going to put some glue. And then our railings get glued to the front of that. There is a square plate with engraved lines. A little bit of glue. Now we'll work on this side. Okay, the first thing we have to do is glue in our supports. Okay, there's 4. There's one back here. I don't know if you can see that. But there's 4 supports. Okay, we'll let that dry, and while that's drying, let's take these. There's 3 of them. Okay, we're going to put glue at the top and glue on this little peg that's sticking out of the end. You know what? On this one, we can put glue on the back side because it goes right up against the wall. And hopefully, hopefully I don't have any boards that I lifted really sticking out. You might want to press some of those boards in. Okay, I'll show you. So that peg fits in a little slot in the base, and then it gets glued right up against that brace. Okay, this one, glue at the top and glue on the little tab at the bottom. Okay, we'll put the tab in the base. And see, on that support that sticks out, there's a piece in the middle that goes right up and down. That's what you glue it to. Okay, now we'll do the last one. I'll clean this glue up, but I just want to show it to you. Okay, now Now the railings, the bottom of the railing, the bottom of the posts is even with the bottom of that plate that we just glued on. Okay, now I won't bore you, but I'll get all the steps. So here are all the steps. I just gotta cut them out and then get them all glued in place. Okay, I'm gluing on all the steps, and I pick it up not directly in the middle because there's a piece in the middle, so you have to go off to the side, then dip one end in the glue, the other end in the glue, wipe it if you get too much, and then drop it in place. Might have to press it down a little bit. Okay, so again, pick it up. I'll show you up close where I'm picking it up. Now you may want to do one at the top, one at the bottom, and one in the center so that it doesn't, if it bows out slightly, it's too wide. There's too wide a space. So you want to, I'll show you quick. We'll take super glue. I should have done this to begin with, but it's okay. Okay, I'm pressing the step down while slightly pushing in the side piece. There, now it'll always be straight. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, just make sure you glue one step in the center to keep that spacing, otherwise it has a little bit of play and it could move on you. I'll show you on this side. This side's pretty stiff because it lined up, but in the middle, a little bit of movement, right? You don't want that. So what you can do is glue one in the center first. Same with down here. Put one in the center. That keeps any of it from moving. Okay, the steps are all done. You can see I've got the railings all glued in place. Now we'll take a small sponge, picking at it a little bit to make it irregular. Okay, now let's bittersweet chocolate. You know, actually, before we do the rust, I wanted to dry brush a little bit of sea glass. I'm going to do a little bit on the top. I might have to get a different brush. Okay, now we can do the rest. Okay, I just took raw sienna, and next to those posts I did a little bit. I'm hoping you can see that. Okay, it was an all-nighter in the shop. We still have a lot more to do on this, but I've got all of the detail parts painted and put on. You'll notice the little lamps above the doors, the pulley, I think the kit comes with an extra window. So I cut up the glass in it and glued it against the wall. There's a water tower. Very simple build. Okay, you have your 3D printed water tank, a platform, and 4 sides. Now, 2 of the sides are the same and 2 are different. I'll show you. 2 of the sides are thick, and then these 2 sides are thin. So the thin one gets glued right up against the back side. I guess I could glue this to the base. Alright, we'll get a primer on this. Okay, the water tower is done. The base, the wood base of it is just sprayed with the khaki color after I sprayed the gray primer on it. The water tank, after I did a gray primer on it, I just did a really light wash of silver, very little. It's thin, mostly water, just to give it a metallic look. And then I just sponged on 3 colors. Raw sienna, burnt sienna, and this is dark chocolate. It's supposed to be bittersweet chocolate. Okay, then I added a chimney, and I just sprayed that with the reddish brown primer. Then I took some spackling compound and rubbed it over it so that this all went into the cracks for the mortar. I then painted the cement top gray, and then I went with a darker gray for the pipes. And then I did some orange and brown pastel chalk over it. Okay, let's go ahead and do the sign for the rooftop and the smokestack. You know what, we'll do the smokestack first. I cut my straw 4 inches. And it just sits on that rooftop inside there. Okay, I just cut a piece of tape. It's actually 3/16 wide. Let's start at the top. Okay, so again, the bands are 3/16 tall, and the length, I made it 2.5, 3 inches, and then just wrapped it around. And then what I like to do is take a little bit of super glue, very little, and just go over the edge of the tape. Okay, now let's spray this with the reddish brown primer. Okay, it's all painted. Now I just made a wash, a little bit of black, mostly water. Alright, we'll get the hair dryer. Okay, let's take burnt sienna. Then we'll take raw sienna. And we're just going to go do a little bit around the bands. I'm going to start at the top and then just kind of drag it down. We want to keep moving it and look at it from every angle. Alright, now we'll take our pastels and get some rush streaks coming down off that pipe. Okay, let's get the rooftop sign put on there. Let's glue these onto here. Okay, so we'll take the flat side and we'll glue it so that it's level with the top. I'll glue these and then show you. Now we have this piece, and it gets glued on the back. You can glue it anywhere. You can glue it all the way at the top, or I'm going to, there is a bar that goes straight across. I'm going to line it up with that bar right there on the back. Okay, I sprayed the back side of the sign with a gray primer. Then with bittersweet chocolate I sponged on a little bit of rust. Let's add some rust to this. Now we have to glue this onto here. It looks like if we just run a bead of glue along the back side of the sign and then at the bottom of each letter, that'll hold it. I ended up putting a green wash, mostly water, over that sign. I felt it was a little too light. Now you may have noticed I had a wood deck here and it wrapped around and it didn't fit properly. I mismeasured it and it went to, I think, the middle of this here, and the entire thing was 1/8 of an inch lower than the door. So it just didn't fit right. I didn't like it, so I completely ripped it off, threw it away and went back to the computer and redesigned a different loading dock. Now, the one I'm going to put on now, and I'll show you how to do it, it goes the full length of this. And then there's a set of stairs going up to it. And then I extended this concrete pad in the back. And then we'll have a set of stairs going up to that door right there. All right, let's start to build our little wood loading dock. And the good news is, redesigning that, I laid this sheet out differently, and you now get 4 wood pallets in the kit instead of 3. Okay, let's cut out our parts. So we have our decking. Here's the tread for our stairs. Now, some of this we already used for the sign on the rooftop and the stairs, so we'll just ignore that. All right, I won't bore you with this. I'll cut out what we need and then we'll start to paint it. Okay, these parts here we're going to spray with the reddish brown primer. And we have a couple set of railings there. Now we'll flip this around. This all gets sprayed with the khaki color. So it is the deck for the loading dock and then all the treads for the steps. Okay, now I am putting nail holes on the decking. One on each end, or each side. Now, I didn't line up the stairs too well, but I'll move some of them so that it's a little more straight. Sorry, they're kind of stuck on it. I'm just moving them. Okay, I think that's good enough. All right, so I'm going to do each end. And then we'll take our wire brush now we'll put a stain over this. Okay, we're going to use murky brown. I'm going to go ahead and take the murky brown and go over these. Okay, I did some washes over the individual boards. I don't know if that's showing up good. Now, let's put this all together. You know what we need to do first is take a sponge and sponge on some of our iced coffee to make it look like the paint is chipping off these parts. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is take these two pieces right here. And this one gets glued on top of this one. Just like that. Just spreading that glue evenly over the whole piece. Now, before it dries, we'll quick put it on here. Make sure it all lines up perfectly. And there it is. Now, we want to do the same with these. So you'll take these two pieces and glue them on top of each other. Now you could spread this glue on with a paintbrush. It's definitely a cleaner way to do it. Okay, there's the other one. Now, take your decking and try to get it as straight as you can. And then decide which is going to be your front edge and what's going to be the back edge. The back edge goes up against the building. Flip it over and make sure you remember which is the back. The back side is going to get this piece glued to it with this facing forward. So the side that's unpainted gets glued up against the building. I'll show you once I get this glued on. And try to get this piece as straight as possible too. Okay, so this is the top and this is the front side. So underneath, you can see that is painted. You want that, it's on top of this piece, but it's right to the edge. And I would say there's probably maybe a 1/16 of an inch on both sides. So it doesn't go right to the edge. Okay, now we're going to take these little pieces, and that's exactly how it gets glued on there. So I'm just putting glue on two sides. So you can see there's a little bit of space. It's not right to the edge. Same on this side. Okay, now we'll take this one, which was the double, and glue that in place. Again, make sure it's straight. Something I didn't do on the other pieces, which I should have. Take your file. Just get rid of those little nubs and some of the paint. Again, I should have done that on the other pieces before I glued them on. I just forgot. And this, we're going to put some glue on the back side, on the two ends. Okay, perfect. And there's a little bit of an overhang. So when you flip it over, that's what it looks like. And then this, you can put your glue on this piece, and that gets glued up against the building. And we'll do that right now. Move our steps. Make sure it's the correct height, and it is. You have to work kind of fast because that glue can soak into the wood. We'll hold it for a second. Now for the stairs. And it's really up to you where you put them. Obviously, one has to go in back up to the door, and then we'll put a set somewhere at this end. I think the easiest way to build these stairs is take a piece of tape, glue on my fingers and it's coming off on the tape. Okay, put that down so it's sticky side up. We'll lay down one step. That'll give us our spacing. Okay, take your two side pieces, make sure they're going the right direction. There's engraved lines on it and you want those going straight up and down. I don't know if you can see that. You want a little bit of an overhang on the steps. Not a lot, but a little bit. Okay, now we'll take our tweezers okay, let me see if I can zoom in on this. They certainly don't have to be perfect. It's an old wood staircase, so it's not too difficult. It's just a little bit time consuming. Okay, one more. Now I forgot, but I need to spray paint the back side of the railings. I'll do that quick. Glue those two posts onto the side of the steps. Okay, the steps and railing are in. Same with out here. Now we had a redesign on our dust collector, and I'll show you the new one. So basically the same thing. You still need to add that little straw in there. I think I'm going to leave this one on, but this is the one that you'll get in the kit. Okay, so I've just been adding little details like broken boards. In the kit you'll get little newspapers that you can cut out and then crumple up and just glue them wherever. Those little details add a lot. Oh, and I have been adding signs. There's a couple signs on the side. And then there's a big sign on the back. Now, when I put that on, I took my fingernail and pressed it into all of the boards. Then, after it was completely dried, I took the color iced coffee, a lot of water, just a little bit of the paint, and did a wash over it. I let it dry, then I went back and did some individual boards with that same wash. And it just gives it kind of a faded, old look. Another sign. Okay, so now for the last thing, the last detail. The kit comes with 4 wood pallets that you can build and just add anywhere for detail. The easiest way to build these, and let me zoom in and show you. Okay, we're making pallets. I've got 2 done. We've got 2 more to go. So the first thing we're going to cut out are these 3 little pieces that have little notches cut in them. Hopefully you could see that. There's 2 right at the top. One there, one there, and then one at the bottom. Okay, we'll quick cut those. I'm using a brand new blade. That makes a huge difference. This material, this brown material, is kind of tough. Okay, we're going to take those 3 pieces and we're going to take the flat side, the side that's facing down, that's completely flat, and we're going to glue that onto our boards. We'll put one on each end and one in the center. Now you have to work fast because this material soaks up glue really quick. I don't know if you can hear that thunder, but it is storming here. Put some glue on it. Come in about a 32nd of an inch. Glue one more in the middle. Then we'll spray it quick with an accelerator. This makes that glue dry instantly. Okay, well, that's what it looks like right now. We'll make sure it's dry and we'll use our hair dryer real quick. Now we're going to cut on each side. And there it is so far. Now you could leave it like that, but we're going to glue it onto this piece. And you want the boards to run the same direction. So hopefully you can see this. I'm going to glue it just like that on top. Again, important that your boards run the same direction. Same direction. Want to make sure that the glue is all the way across those boards. Then I just laid it right on top of there. Now you could quick spray it. Now we'll cut out on each side all those little boards. And there's your pallet. So you can see now the purpose of those notches. Hopefully you can see that. So when this is sitting this direction, the forklift can go underneath it and lift it up. Okay, I just did a light misting of the khaki color. Now I'm using light sand. It's a dry brush paint from Ammo. I love the dry brush paint from Ammo, and it's a thick paint. This will last me my entire life. And I probably have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors. Okay, so we're just going to quick go over the edges. Get a little bit across the top. Okay, that's it. Done. If you want, you could take some pastels Now we'll just glue these on the model. Maybe we'll do... Okay, maybe we'll put the last one, we'll lean it right up against the side there. Okay, this model is complete. Wow. This was a week-long build. I'll take the camera off and give you a better look. I hope you enjoyed this build. I love this model and I'm looking forward to finding a home for it on my layout. And again, a quick reminder, if you are a paid Patreon member, you receive a discount on this kit. All right, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon members. You guys are the best. This channel is not possible without the help of all these people. All right, thank you so much for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, stay motivated and happy modeling, everyone.